Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Marco Jure Show, everyone. It's Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. Thank you again for being here, as always, tuning in today's show to hear all the relevant groundbreaking news here in America and around the world, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Please don't forget to follow the show wherever you might get your podcast, available now on all streaming apps for your listening pleasures. And again, be sure to share with as many people as possible so we can make accountability great again right here in America. Hope everyone's ready for the best hour radio has to offer. Uncensored and ready to go. Great show lineup for you today. We've got lots going on, lots to discuss, especially with this new 2026 National Defense Authorization Act that was just released a few days ago, and we're going to go over exactly what's inside of it. But first, I want to talk about Vladimir Zelensky, the de facto leader of Ukraine, who's now refusing to give Ukrainian land to Russia. This is in CBS News. And it doesn't shock me at all because he's been fairly defiant with this 28-point peace plan from the start of this. But it starts off by saying Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky declared that Ukraine will not give up any territory to Russia and said components of the plan to end the war between the two countries are ready to be presented to the United States. So he's coming back after Trump's gone with his own State Department, probably written by Steve Witkoff and God knows who else. And they're actually coming out and saying, no, we're going to present you the peace plan. Now, I want to remind Vladimir Zelensky, you've lost this conflict. But now he's coming in and saying, no, we're going to set the terms for the peace proposal. Does that make any sense to anybody listening? Of course it doesn't. He says Russia's insisting that we give up territories, but we don't want to cede anything. This is what he said on Monday. He said, we have no legal right to do so under Ukrainian law, our constitution, and international law. We have also no moral right either. Now, do you think Vladimir Putin's listening to this and saying, okay, we're just going to walk away? We'll walk away. We'll do everything you want to do, Zelensky. This is absurd. This comes right after he met with leaders from the United Kingdom, France, Germany. So he met with Merz, Starmer, and Macron, right? They came out and bolstered this idea that they're going to give Ukraine security and support, self-determination, coordinate a common position before engaging further with the United States on peace negotiations. We've already got the peace negotiations. It's Russia that needs to come in and say, you know what? We'll accept this, and this. We're not accepting all these. That's how the peace talk should be working out right now. It's Russia that's winning the conflict. It's Russia that's been winning the entire time. It's Ukraine that took the first misstep by shelling ethnic Russians in the Donbass region. That's what it all comes down to. And again, the idea that they're provoking the idea of joining NATO as well. We're going to talk about that momentarily. But the idea that Putin is just going to walk away from this now, after investing in this for almost 4 years now, is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And Zelensky going on and saying that Ukraine will share a revised peace plan with President Trump's administration. Yeah, right. Again, it's just foolish. If Zelensky and Merz and Starmer and Macron, having met on Monday, want to continue on this conflict, go for it. Have at it. Have at it. Who cares? I mean, this is absolutely absurd to me that we can actually take this seriously. And again, these three countries are in no position to even challenge Russia. It wouldn't even be a conflict at all. We discussed earlier this week the missiles that Russia now has in its arsenal just totally would supersede anything that any of these three countries, or all of NATO, for that matter, could really do to pose any type of threat to Russia. That's just the way it is. Now, Zelensky says he's going to be willing to travel to the United States for more peace talks with President Trump. Trump replied in an interview that Ukraine has to play ball. And Mr. Trump also said Russia has the upper hand in the conflict, adding they always did. Well, he's right about this. So that's why he should have sat down on day one and said, listen, it's over. This conflict's over. We're done. We're cutting you off. It's done. And anyone else who wants to fund this, have at it. You have good luck losing your money. We've already spent over $300 billion in this conflict. Now, Trump also blasted the European leaders over their handling of Ukraine, saying they're not doing a good job. Well, no kidding. But again, it's all part of the war machine. It's a military security industrial complex, folks. That's what it comes down to. And again, they're in no position to challenge Russia at all. I just want to share that with you. Thomas Massie came out just recently introducing a bill to withdraw the United States from NATO. I think that's exactly what we need to do right now. Now, some of you are saying, well, what about security alliances, agreements? Here's the problem with this. Trump is working for peace right now. Okay? He's trying to sit down with Putin. He's trying to sit down with Zelensky and say, listen, here's the reality of the situation. Here's an actual peace plan we can maybe get you behind to stop the bloodshed. We have over 2 million Ukrainians now that have died as a result of what's happened in this war. God knows how many more have been wounded. You have roughly almost 800,000 dead Russians. Let's stop the conflict. It's not going in Ukraine's favor. In fact, it's getting worse as the time goes on. Now, Massie is correct in calling it a Cold War relic and draining to American taxpayers. Of course it is. We've drained trillions of dollars from American taxpayers, entangled the country far beyond conflicts in which it's in its national interest. What is the purpose of this? That's what we need to ask ourselves. What do we get from being in NATO? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, at the end of World War II, it made more sense. We didn't want the encroachment of the Soviet Union coming to Europe or to the United States, so we created an alliance. Well, guess what? In 1991, that all ended. You know why? Because the Soviet Union collapsed, number one, and number two, they withdrew from the Warsaw Pact. Right? Those are other Eastern Bloc countries that were a part of it. So it's over. And right then and there, NATO should have been over as well. But it wasn't. Now, he's gone on to say the United States should withdraw from NATO and use that money to defend our country, not socialist countries. That's another big concept I think people on Capitol Hill should start to get behind so we can actually start saving some money, actually work for fiscal conservatism. I hope so. I don't think it will, but I really hope it's the idea that we need to come to terms and say, listen, we have to work towards securing American sovereignty, security, work on securing our southern border. Has anyone come from NATO to help the United States? Has anyone in NATO given the United States any money? Of course not. Of course not. None of our so-called allies do, right? We had that invasion on the southern border. Did anyone come and offer troops to help our border patrol? Of course they didn't. Now, this H.R. 6508 will totally take us out of NATO membership. Now, it doesn't dissolve the pact itself. If the European countries want to do so, of course, they can stay within it. But the United States should withdraw. And especially with Starmer, Macron, Merz, suggesting now that they're going to come in and bolster up Ukraine. Hey, you be the leaders of NATO now. We're done with this. Let's get us out of this. Let's get us out of this. Again, it refers back to what I said to you on Monday's show. Our Constitution did not authorize permanent foreign entanglements. That's something that all of our founding fathers explicitly, Washington said it in his farewell address. We shouldn't be involved in some world blanket security system or the benefactors for other nations that totally supersedes everything, exceeds everything in our Constitution. Especially when these wealthy countries refuse to pay for their own self-defense. Come on. We need to get behind this, folks. Hey, call your congressmen or women. Say, listen, vote for this. We want this. We want this bill. Thomas Massie's pushing it forward. Get us out of this. Just like we got out of the stupid Paris Climate Accord. That has nothing to do with solving anything regarding our environment. President Trump was right to pull us out of this. It would be perfectly fine to pull us out of NATO. I know it's a drastic statement to make, but it's the right statement to make. We don't need this. It doesn't benefit us at all. And it only drains more of our taxpayer dollars. So good on Thomas Massie. Will it go anywhere? He's always at odds with President Trump. Who knows if this will go anywhere, even though he probably does agree with this. But we don't need NATO. We simply don't. I mean, all these countries are in a recession right now, as it is. Trump even pointed that out recently. That they haven't just been doing anything for themselves. They're not producing anything. They've opened up their borders to the entire world. Look how that's going for them. They're in complete disarray, just like we are, from what's happening on our southern border as well. Yep, anyways, let's move on. This is discussing our National Defense Authorization Act that just came out a few days ago. It went through the House and Senate Armed Services Committees for their final edits. They were previously passed earlier in this year. Now they're going to go back for a vote again. Okay, no problem with that, right? We always pass these bills. What's in the bill, though? That's the big question, of course. Well, there's almost roughly $901 billion that Trump requested back in May. And again, it will be said to be voted on this week after bipartisan talks between the House, Senate, and the White House have come to fruition. And they've come out, this is Mike Johnson saying, this year's National Defense Authorization Act helps advance President Trump and the Republicans' peace through strength agenda by codifying 15 of President Trump's executive orders, ending woke ideology at the Pentagon, securing the border, revitalizing the defense industry base, and restoring the warrior ethos. Okay, so he's got a little bit from the Defense Department. He's got a little bit from DHS here that they're giving away to the ending of the woke ideology. I thought that already ended, by the way. How does cutting this nonsense from these social programs out of the Pentagon cost us anything? It should be saving us money. Get rid of it. Who needs it? We don't need it. That would restore the warrior ethos. They also want to give a full repeal of Syrian sanctions. Obviously, we saw al-Shara recently come to the White House. He's now the latest buddy of President Trump's. Okay, so we're going to remove sanctions from Syria. Why? Probably because we want to build a military base outside of Damascus. I'm sure that's probably what it comes down to. But provisions require the administration to certify every 6 months that the interim Syrian government now is following through on combating terrorism and drug trafficking, respecting minority rights, and seeking peaceful relations with its neighbors. Well, I don't think that's working out too well. They're killing Druze and Arawites right now. Is he all of a sudden going to stop? This guy's a terrorist, first of all. He's wanted by the United States government for $10 million. A bounty was placed on his head. So now every 6 months we're going to go through and see, is he still chopping heads off? Is he still chopping hands? Is he still killing people? Is he going to play ball with Israel and give them everything they want? Well, who knows? Who knows? Now, if the report is negative, the president can consider imposing new sanctions on individuals, but critical for Syrian supporters is that there's no snapback mechanism. So here's the problem I have with this bill. A couple problems I have with it. And again, I understand we're trying to bolster up our military. I understand that. It's important to understand that there are restrictions now on U.S. investments in China. Given our tariff war, I'm not sure how good that's going to go. But it's a win for China hawks in Congress. It says the NDAA includes legislation restricting the United States investment in adversarial countries that would benefit their development of technologies that can modernize their militaries, increase their surveillance technology, and again contribute to human rights abuses. Well, we've already done this for China. China's GDP was flatlining for roughly 30 years. Then Bill Clinton brings them into the World Trade Organization. Look what they're doing with their technology. Look at the patents they own. Look how they know what to do now. Look how they've built themselves up in the last 20, 25 years. It's really remarkable when you think about it. But they don't need any of this. They've already bolstered everything up. Their military is massive. Their technology is growing. Look what they're doing with AI. And again, these precious metals. These rare earth minerals that are going to be necessary for the AI. They're going to lead that market, folks. And again, they're also in BRICS now. So they don't need the United States. They've already done this. They've won, in a sense. So again, I'm not saying we should just take China lightly, but we should offer reasonable trade with them. That's what I'm saying here. And again, this increased surveillance technology, all this stuff that they think that they don't already have. Folks, I think you'll remember during the Biden administration, they flew that big balloon, security balloon over the United States. And what happened as a result? Nothing. It was able to traverse the entire United States, for God's sakes. What do we do? Did we hold them accountable? Of course we didn't. Of course we didn't. Well, we shot it down in the Pacific outside of South Carolina, didn't we? It's such a joke. We let them take up land next to our military bases, farmland that should be given to American farmers. How about putting that in the bill, for God's sakes? Say, China will not own any land as a government entity in the United States or any foreign investors, by the way. Boom. Get them out of here. Get them the hell out of here. If they're not U.S. citizens, they shouldn't be buying United States land. That's, again, for U.S. national security and for a foreign policy interest. Yet, have we done anything about this? Of course not. Oh, and by the way, Ukraine aid. Look at this. I don't understand this. Are we moving away from this or are we adding to it? This needs to get stripped right away. Again, I don't know how it made it through the House and Senate Armed Services Committee. Ukraine received $400 million for the year 2026 and another $400 million for fiscal year 2027. Part of the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. Funds go towards production by American companies for some high-priority weapons for the Ukraine Armed Forces. Well, I ask you, are we still in this war? Or are we not in this war? Are we pushing for peace or are we pushing for more war? Giving people more money for arms tells me we're probably pushing for more war. Now, this was, again, issued back in May before this 28-point peace plan came out. Perhaps President Trump will look at it and say, you know what? Scrap this. We're not giving them $800 million. We're not giving another damn penny, for God's sakes. Of course, we don't even make pennies anymore. So we're not giving another damn dime. How about that? It's unbelievable. Why would we support this? I don't understand this. Why are we wasting our money on this? If the war's over, why are we giving more money for weaponry? Let NATO do that. Let Merz, who wants to build up his military, right? He wants the biggest military in Germany. Great. You help fund Ukraine. Tell Starman to do that, whose military is essentially meaningless. Same thing goes for Macron in France. You guys support this. You guys set this up. You guys fund their new military operation. You help their armed forces, for God's sakes. We're done with this. We've given them enough. Hell, half the arms we've given them ends up on the black market anyways. Needs to stop, folks. Restrictions on troop withdrawals from Europe. Says here that the Department of Defense from dropping the number of U.S. forces deployed or permanently stationed in Europe to under 76,000 for more than 45 days unless the Pentagon can certify that NATO allies are consulted and drawn down is in America's national security interests. Interesting. Okay. So, what else do we have here? Well, some meaningless stuff here. I'm not going to go into too much of this. Expansion of IVF. Okay, who cares? Housing support. All right, whatever. So, this one's interesting. Look at this. Central bank digital currency ban. I like this. Finally. Something that we can actually get behind here. A House leadership aide said that efforts to include a ban of central bank digital currency, or CBDC, fell apart amid negotiations over bipartisan housing packages. There was a linkage that emerged between these two items and what it would have taken to get a deal on anti-CBDC, which is a priority for the House, but was not something that was ultimately going to be accepted to our members, is what the aide said. It says that we want to ensure that the House has an opportunity to run its own process on housing policy. The Senate marks up theirs. Our Financial Services Committee is just about to go forward with its own markup. So on anti-CBDC, that's going to continue to be a priority for the House Republicans, and will continue to work on housing policy as well. Listen, this should be banned indefinitely. It's all about removing hard currency, which we all should have. We all should have the opportunity to hold currency in our hands. Tangible currency. Not something fictitious on a computer screen. Now, I know some of you will say, well, Gervais, we already kind of do this. Most of us use our debit card, our credit cards only. PayPal, online banking, all this nonsense. Okay, I understand that. I've done that too. But I always carry cash with me. Because, again, it's a form of freedom. They really can't track me where I'm going to use my dollar bills, right? Do you want the government to see every single transaction you make? I don't think so. And again, it's just something good to have. If something happens, an emergency, if power's out, you have cash on hand. And again, once it's in your pocket, you really can't get it taken away from you, unless, of course, you get robbed. But, that's the idea behind this. We all should have tangible currency we can access whatever we want. Because, again, if it's all on a computer screen, right? If I go to the bank and say, hey, I'd like $1,000. They say, well, we really can't give you that. We can't give you that much money today. What if the bank does that? Bank comes in and says, hey, we can't issue this to you. You say, well, hey, I'm making a purchase in cash for $1,000. I need it. No, sorry, we can't do that. So, again, the bank can decide what you get, how much you get, when you can get it. See how this works? So, again, that's why I'm saying you should have access to your own currency. That's all I'm saying here. And again, this central bank digital currency, they can take it whatever they want to, folks. They can say, well, you know what? We've decided you didn't pay enough in your taxes. We're going to start taking some, garnishing some of your wages, perhaps, taking money out of your bank account. And again, it's all digital, so they can do whatever the hell they want anyways. They control it. You see how this is a problem? And again, you have to understand, too, anytime you put money into a bank account, you become a creditor to that bank. And you're also an uninsured creditor to that bank. They don't have to give you back anything. And I know you'll argue FDIC rules. Well, Dodd-Frank made that a law. You're an uninsured creditor when you put that money in the bank now. Way back in, 2010, 2011? Oh, how things have changed, folks. So, again, make sure you always have some cash on hand. Make sure I tell you to store up cash if you can, right? So you have it. Because that is actual tangible currency which you can use. So, understand that. Oh, by the way, too, I just want to express this to you, since we're talking about, obviously, defense spending and what have you. The United States spends more than the next 9 countries after us. Did you know that? I'm sure you probably did. Yeah, last year we spent roughly $1 trillion in defense spending. Or was it 2024? 2024. We just spent just under $1 trillion. The next 9 countries, that'd be China, Russia, Germany, India, the UK, Saudi Arabia, Ukraine, France, Japan, as a combination, they only spent $984 billion. Now, we're not even in war right now, folks. Again, I understand we want to bolster up our Navy. Our Navy's extremely small. I understand this. We have to, recruit. We have to, get our missiles. We have to get all our munitions and what have you in place. That's important. I'm not denying that. But how is it we have to spend this much money? We need to start cutting some of this spending. And it seems every single year we spend more and more on defense. We're not even in a war right now. God, I hope we're not in a war. Now, of course, we should be ready if we need to defend our nation. Should there be anything that happen? I'm not denying that. But doesn't it seem a little bit odd we're not even in a war and we're spending all this money on defense? Just a thought. I figured I'd share that with you. We seem to spend more and more and more. And what happens if that doesn't get used? Do we give some of that away? Look at what we've given to Ukraine. Look what we give to Israel. We're supposed to be giving military aid to Taiwan. That's bought, I think, $19 billion worth of weaponry from us that we still have to give to them. Makes you wonder, doesn't it, folks? The more you spend on war, the more likely you're going to be in a war. That's the way I think about it. All right, moving on. Breitbart. Talking about what happened with these ships being hit in the Caribbean. And Rand Paul commented with John Roberts just yesterday. And he talked about the legality, of course, of what happened. Is what happened legal? Now, again, we're talking about people that have been struck with a missile. The boat's been hit. You have people in the water. Is it legal to go on and issue another strike? Now, there's The dispute now going on, was it Pete Hegseth? Was it this Admiral Bradley? Who did it? Who did it? When, again, what they're saying now, we did this strike because there were people still in the water. Okay, but if there's still people in the water, why are you issuing a second strike? You should be rescuing them, per law. As in, they pose absolutely no threat. And I think Rand Paul's one of the few people that really understands this, so I'll let you hear him as he says it in his own words.
If our pilots have to eject from a plane, we show that we don't shoot people. We don't shoot pilots that are descending by parachute. If we blow up a boat and there are survivors, we don't shoot those people. We don't sidle up in a boat and take a 9mm pistol out, put it to their head and shoot them. Nobody would do that. But just because the missiles come from a long distance doesn't make it any more right. But it's clearly against our laws of war. And even deeper than that, there is a question of, are unarmed people that are smugglers part of a war? Are we in the middle of a war with unarmed people? Why don't they present evidence that they're in arms? Why don't they present evidence that these boats are even coming to the United States? These are small motorboats, often 2,000 miles from our shore. If they have drugs, which hasn't been proven, if they have drugs, they're probably taking it to neighboring islands. So this is a crazy thing that we've never done before. And to make a crime into war is to stretch credulity to the point that I think a lot of common sense people don't buy it.
He's absolutely right about this. First, he's 100% right. Again, he's one of the few people that, again, looks at our Constitution and says, is this morally right? Is this legal? I've read to you so many times before it violates our Constitution, the Fifth Amendment primarily. But it also violates the War Crimes Act as well. It violates international law. It violates the Geneva Convention. And again, I'm not saying this to you to bash the Trump administration. But as a conservative, I'm following the Constitution. That is the law of the land. We point to it for every other thing. And then again, that applies to warfare as well. Foreign issues as well. So here we go. If there is contraband being carried on one of these boats that we keep seeing, they're tiny boats, by the way. These are not big boats. It's not like they're on a steamer, coming to the United States or nearby. These are small, tiny fishing boats. They're speed boats. Do you honestly think they can make it 2,000, 1,500 miles to the United States? What, do they just have gas beyond measure on this boat? I mean, they can go roughly 60 miles. So every 60 miles they're reloading to get to the United States? Come on. Let's be realistic. But again, if there is contraband, if there is this narcotics on these boats, which again is always alleged, any article you read, the alleged narco-terrorists, the alleged drug smugglers, the alleged terrorists, everything's alleged here. Nothing's been proven. Have we confiscated any drugs from these boats? Well, you'll argue, the boat's been blown up. The drugs are on the bottom of the ocean. How do we know the drugs are on the boat? Now, some will say, there's intelligence. Well, if there's intelligence, our intelligence has been wrong before. Where there's supposed to be weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, guess what? Not a one. And we destroyed a whole country as a result of it. We killed over 1 million people in Iraq. It's disgusting. Here it is by international law, though, right? If you think that boat has contraband on it, the Navy can then stop the boat. You inspect the boat. You detain those on board the boat. You confiscate the illegal drugs intended to obviously be brought to the United States or elsewhere. And then you arrest and you charge those on board. Again, this term narco-terrorist, is just a made-up word. It's not even in the Constitution. But you let these people go through our legal system. Pete Hegseth wants to scrap all that. He says, the hell with the rules of engagement. Let's just do whatever we want. Doesn't really matter. We get people in court and then it takes forever. That's the law, though, Pete. Again, you should know this. How does he not know this? It's a bit shocking. But again, that's the due process. There is due process. You can't just kill somebody. Now, Hegseth saying we also don't fight with stupid rules of engagement, again, it's ridiculous. He's basically saying we can do whatever the hell we want. That's not true. Look at this. We untie the hands of our warfighters to intimidate, demoralize, hunt, and kill the enemies of our country. That's unless you're in a war, you can't do any of that. Just common sense, maximum lethality, and authority for warfighters. Okay, Pete, well, again, that's a violation of the Constitution. That's a violation of the Geneva Convention. That's a violation of the War Crimes Act. That's been passed by our Congress. That is the law of the land. And just a reminder, if Hegseth did issue this, and then they're coming back saying, well, Hegseth didn't do it. You had Mitch Bradley come out and say, well, no, he didn't authorize that. Okay, well, then who authorized it? You were in charge of SEAL Team 6 that day? Admiral Bradley, who issued it? Did you issue it? Did one of your officers issue it? Who issued this? To strike the boat again. Why did you offer to strike the boat again? Why did you strike the boat in the first place? Now, we know Hegseth issued the first strike, again, which is absolutely illegal, because they pose absolutely no threat. And now, if we're right next to them and they're shooting at us, that's a much different situation. But we're 1,500, 2,000 miles away. It poses absolutely no national security risk to us at all. And the argument coming in as well, they're bringing in poisonous drugs that are going to kill us, and, it's okay to just kill everybody on board. Sorry, folks, that's not the law. I've used this analogy with you as well. If you saw a drug deal happen on the streets, or a drug deal is happening in a house, you don't just blow up the house. You don't just shoot the person. You arrest them, you detain them. Now, of course, if they were to shoot at you or try to kill you in some way, then you have a right to, obviously. So again, it's a big cause of concern here. Someone is responsible for this. And if not Pete Hegseth, who issued that second strike. Now, the second strike is the one that's more damning, because these people are clearly out of the fight. They pose absolutely no threat. Their boat's been destroyed. They're clinging to wreckage. They're not pushing any type of violence towards the United States military at all. And yet we're striking them again. So who issued the strike? Why would you order a second strike unless you saw people still alive? And again, it's rhetoric like this, like people like Jack Keane, who said on Stuart Varney's show the other day the following.
Democrats and Republicans presidents for the last 20 plus years, beginning with the 9/11 wars, have authorized similar strikes, most of them certainly on land, isolated targets like this boat was with the people on it. And then, Stuart, as a result of it, if you looked at a video of what took place then, you would also see survivors of that in a very chaotic situation where people are dead and wounded and certainly seem helpless. But because the decision has been made in terms of what they represent as terrorists and the harm that they have been doing, we have the full authority to eliminate them and to eliminate the survivors as well, because they can rise again and still continue to do harm. The video, when you look at it, in the case of the boat is the target as well as the terrorist organization that are driving that boat and bringing that poison into the United States. There's moral clarity here in the authority to eliminate them in terms of the harm they're doing, very similar to what we've done on land with terrorists in Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, also in Somalia. The list goes on. And reattack has been a form of all of that.
So reattack has been a form of all that. So again, he should know this. He should know 100%. Just like what Rand Paul said, if we eject from a plane and we're coming down to the ocean, they don't just simply come up to us and start firing at us still. You pose absolutely no threat. If you're out of the fight, it's over. There's no reason to kill anyone at that point. That is the rule of law for war. And the idea here that this is moral clarity? How is that moral clarity, folks? Seriously, I'm asking you, how is that moral clarity when you're killing people that are clinging to wreckage, who pose absolutely no threat to you? Drug boat. Possibly not even coming to the United States. How do we come off and do this? That's again, it's random. It's happened all of a sudden since this anti-rhetoric towards Venezuela took place. And now all of a sudden, Venezuela is the only country that has so-called narco-terrorists in it. It's mind-boggling to me. But the idea that a general is coming out now saying, you know what, it's okay, they're bringing this poison to the United States, sometimes it's important to just keep restriking. Yeah, you restrike when someone's attacking you, not when someone is out of the fight. Again, there are rules to war, and we're clearly violating it with all these attacks. They're all simply unlawful. We're not at war with Venezuela. Not to my knowledge, at least not yet. How do we go out and just simply blow up boats and think that's okay? And again, I see Republicans championing this. It's mind-boggling. Now, some of you say, well, there's drugs on the boat. Thank God they're not coming here. I agree with you. I don't want drugs coming to the United States either. That's why we defend our southern border. That's why we intercept these people. That's why we arrest these people. But to just blow up a boat that's 2,000 miles away and say, hey, you know what, that's fine. It's okay. Hey, it doesn't matter. We don't know anyone on the boat. We don't know the names of people on the boat. We don't know what's on the boat. And you say, well, we have intelligence. Well, that's not good enough. Just because you have intelligence doesn't mean that you can go out and just kill somebody. What, just because you have a tip from the police, I mean you go in the house and start blasting away at people? The rule of law, folks, is the rule of law. I can't change it. That's what the rule. If you want to change it, you have to go through Congress. You have to go through international committees to change that. But this is a clear violation of this. We do not kill people that are no longer posing a threat to us. That's indicative of war. We're not even in war with Venezuela. Yeah, here we are blowing up boats. Only suspected of trafficking drugs, supposedly to the United States. We don't know where the boats are going. We don't know if the boats are able to get to the United States. This is the problem with all this. And by the way, I pulled this up too. I went and looked at this just recently. I said, listen, what does the State Department suggest is the list of identifying countries that are major drug producers and also major drug transport hubs? And it brought up this big list. And it says here that the nations most responsible for importing and or smuggling drugs into the United States are Mexico and Colombia, followed by a broader list of Latin American, Caribbean, and Asian countries. Because Mexico is the dominant supplier of heroin, methamphetamine, fentanyl, and marijuana, while Colombia remains the largest source of cocaine. Yeah. So it says by volume and impact. Here we go. Listen to this one. Mexico, by far, the largest contributor to the U.S. drug supply. Again, for the drugs that I listed for you. Cocaine as well on that list. So, again, they're trafficking that in there. Colombia second, dominant cocaine production. Most of it enters the United States via Mexico and Central America. Peru and Bolivia are secondary cocaine producers. So, again, they're producing the product. They're selling it to the Mexican drug cartels who mule it into the United States or coyote it in, whatever the hell word it is. And then they use, this is the kicker too, many of these Mexican cartels will use illegals from foreign countries. So, for example, they might use Honduran or Ecuadorian gang members to push their product on the streets of America. That's how these webs of drug cartels work. So let's all understand that. It says Caribbean nation, Dominican Republic, Bahamas, Jamaica serve as primary transit hubs. So again, the drugs will come to that country and then they'll ship to someplace else. So probably drugs coming from South America or from Latin America will go to these hubs and then they'll ship it to probably Mexico. Then it says here China and India are major suppliers of precursor chemicals for fentanyl and methamphetamines. We know that China is pushing in obviously fentanyl by and large to the United States, and they do that via the Mexican drug cartels. Now, folks, I don't know about you. I don't even see Venezuela on this list. It says here above, though, it says here that Venezuela serves as a transit hub for cocaine. And they, of course, have links to crime networks. I think it has other countries as well. It has Afghanistan on here, major opium producer. Though it doesn't directly come from Afghanistan to the United States. They produce a hell of a lot of opium there. But, I mean, you have other countries, too. Look at this. Honduras. Transit for cocaine. They just brought in 400 tons. We just saw Trump pardon their former president, Juan Orlando Hernandez. Sentenced to 45 years, brought in 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. Are we at war with Honduras, folks? If not, why? Why are we not at war with Mexico right now? Again, if we're talking about bringing poison in, Mexico would be the number one culprit for this. It would seem, right? Again, look at, you see Guatemala, land corridor for cocaine shipments, so they're aiding and abetting. Ecuador for transit and production for cocaine. They're a big supplier as well. Costa Rica will help transit. Colombia, world's largest cocaine producer. So if cocaine is the big issue here, again, stay with me on this. If cocaine is the biggest issue here, and we don't want cocaine coming to the United States, I don't want cocaine coming to the United States. They're the largest producers. Why are we not doing anything with Colombia right now? Why don't we have sanctions on Colombia? Why are we blowing up Colombian ships? They work directly with the Mexican drug cartels for U.S. distribution. And they get rich off of poisoning Americans. Now, why do they ship here? Well, there's a market here for it. There's people that use it, unfortunately. And again, that's a big problem in the United States as well. Look at this. Bahamas, transit hub for cocaine and marijuana into Florida. Why are we not doing anything with the Bahamas right now? Well, you don't think boats show up to Florida unannounced? We've seen it happen. We've seen illegals hop off boats. You know, those little makeshift boats that come into Florida and they hop off and they run in. We've seen it in parts of California. Boats showing up in, at San Diego Beach. People just get off the boat and they run right into the United States. Nothing happens. Why are we not covering our waters? Why are we not securing our coastline? How are we allowing this to happen? Again, I only tell you this because if Venezuela's a problem, why are all these other countries not problems as well? Why isn't China a major problem? We know how deadly fentanyl is. It's anywhere from 50 to 100 times more deadly than heroin. That's how toxic this is. So we need to come to terms with this. We need to understand this. But again, why are we just focusing on one little country that maybe serves as a transit hub? But we're not even producing cocaine. Again, I'm told by, people that know things. They say that most of the drugs in Venezuela will really go to Trinidad, and from Trinidad it goes to West Africa, and from West Africa it goes into Asia or Europe. It doesn't come to the United States. Again, Colombia being the biggest producer, Honduras, obviously, what's the other? Ecuador being very big markets for this. That drugs have to go somewhere, right? If the drugs are going from Trinidad to Africa to, here and there, why are we doing anything about Colombia? Why are we just focused on Venezuela? That's what I'm talking about. Why are we just focused on Venezuela? It just a little bit shocking to me. Now I'm seeing here in Just the War, just the news. Yeah, Just the War maybe is the right title for what we see happening right now. Just the News is now saying that we've now confirmed by the War Department. I love it, the War Department. It's the Defense Department. We didn't officially change the name, but now we love saying it's the Department of War. But now they're confirming that 87 narco-terrorists have been killed. First of all, these people have been charged with nothing. Let's understand that. They've been charged with absolutely nothing. They've been given no due process for God knows what reason. And yet we're talking about Pete Hegseth getting the wrong rap. Well, again, Hegseth's the one that came out and says, I saw the boat. Well, I didn't see the boat. Well, there's the War of Fog. The War of Fog. Okay, then why'd you fire into the War of Fog if you saw no survivors? Why are you allowing this to even happen, Pete? We're not at war with any of these countries. We're not at war with any of these boats. You can't even confirm these boats are coming to the United States. So he's in a rough position right now. These attacks are illegal. And again, they're trying to spin it as in, well, Pete didn't issue it, so therefore it's okay. Someone else did. Well, who did? Who confirmed this attack on survivors of a boat that's been loaded? And by the way, we saw this in the Western Pacific. We attacked a boat there. There were survivors, and the Coast Guard for, I believe it was Mexico, came out and picked these people up. Why didn't we kill them? If, again, according to Jack Keane, We just reattack. It makes no sense. Absolutely no sense what we're doing here. And again, it's just illegal, folks. There's no other way for me to tell it to you. It is illegal what's happening right now. All right, enough of that. Moving on, Breitbart. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker signs bill preventing ICE from arresting illegal aliens near courthouses. J.B. Pritzker, he does everything he can for the illegal aliens, for criminals, nothing for the citizens of the state of Illinois, sadly enough. But again, he signs this bill preventing ICE from doing their job. And again, it's indicative to understand that J.B. Pritzker has no idea what the separation of powers are. I think that's the biggest thing here. And, biggest, aside from him, of course. Pritzker signs the bill coming in after Illinois lawmakers passed this law during the government shutdown, according to the New York Crimes. Under the bill, places, hospitals, and daycare centers are restricted areas from certain information with ICE agents. While the legislation has been praised by Democratic lawmakers in the state, Republicans in the state, however, have taken issue with this, saying with the laws banned on civil immigration enforcement at state courthouses or within 1,000 feet of those courthouses. So they're banning civil immigration enforcement from taking place within 1,000 feet of these courthouses. It's remarkable, isn't it? Illinois State Senator John Curran, a Republican, said, "We are pushing this more and more with these prohibitions into uncontrolled settings. And with uncontrolled settings, these are heightened risks." During a press conference on Tuesday for the signing of the bill, Pritzker claimed that the Chicago region has been subjected to a relentless campaign of cruelty and intimidation and abuse at the hands of ICE under the Trump administration. Again, this is, you read this and you say to yourself, okay, these people don't belong in the country. They're illegal aliens. They've been convicted of a crime, hence they're in a courthouse. And instead of cooperating with the federal immigration laws, you're either letting these people go or letting them go back on the streets when they should be in line for deportation. This is the problem with all this. A lot of times they let these people go. And they go back out and the recidivism rate is high and they end up hurting other people. You can't make this stuff up. So while, Pritzker thinks he's doing something good for people, he's actually putting his citizens in places like Chicago at a much greater risk. The number one job of any executive branch official is to ensure your rights. He is the governor of the state of Illinois. He is supposed to ensure your rights as a resident in the state of Illinois, of which you are in the jurisdiction of. He's not doing that. He's letting illegal aliens take precedent over you. God knows for what. Anyways, I think it's important to reiterate exactly what is happening here. And in that, we have to understand, what does the Supremacy Clause Act say? That's first and foremost. So, Pritzker unfortunately doesn't understand that the Supremacy Clause in the United States Constitution, I would have to argue with you. I don't know why. But he's clearly violating federal law, particularly federal immigration law. So he tries to be slick with this, tries to make a law. He has no jurisdiction to do this. But here it is. The Supremacy Clause states, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding." This means that federal laws passed by Congress, signed into law by a United States president, and or any treaties hold higher authority than any state law you could come up with, ensuring a unified legal framework across the nation. So therefore, again, we're going way back, 1787. This was in the Constitutional Convention. It established federal authority over the states. Again, the federal government created the states. So this clause obviously is designed to prevent the states from undermining your federal laws. Any federal law, by the way. Again, to create a stronger central government. So, if we create federal immigration laws, and obviously it's illegal to be in the United States, and we have a federal agency that's coming in to remove these threats, to remove these illegal aliens, that's what they are, per the Constitution. They're not supposed to be here. They're not in the right jurisdiction. Their jurisdiction is elsewhere. How can we come in there and then we simply allow a state government to say, you know what, we're not going to follow this. You can't operate here. Well, actually, yes, they can. They supersede your rules that you've fictitiously made up. And again, the idea is that the illegal aliens will not be detained or apprehended by ICE. And again, they'll be able to reign free through Chicago and God knows where else in Illinois. Or someplace else for that matter. We've seen this taking place in states like California, where they're issuing driver's license to illegal aliens that simply can't pass the tests. And as a result, they crash the vehicles, and they end up killing American citizens. Again, these are big, big problems. Issuing a fake driver's license to an illegal alien so they can go out and do whatever they want now? They can get a driver's license in another state? So you think that person's a legal citizen when they're actually an illegal alien. And again, how they're getting behind these commercial driver's licenses is beyond me. To go out and drive when they can't even pass the test? How is that happening? Who's allowing this to happen? Well, it's obviously, again, coming from the states. Which is why these state legislatures or the state governments that are allowing these things, or the officials, are violating federal laws. Now, I know you have some congressional leaders coming out saying, well, it's just a misdemeanor. It's not really anything serious. Absolutely, it is serious. It is illegal. You will be caught. You will be fined. You will be apprehended for that. Now, if you get caught again, it becomes a felony. Now, I think first and foremost, it should be a felony when you enter illegally anyways, but anytime you're in the country illegally, you are set for deportation. Let's understand this. You are set to be deported. You have no right to be here. And yet they think because, we've made it a misdemeanor now, it's simply okay if you just come to the United States. Hey, just a slap on the old wrist. No, you will get detained. You will be fined. You will likely serve prison time. And you will likely, after that, be deported. That is the proper means for a functioning government, folks. All right. So, glad we're all on board with all that. But J.B. Pritzker, no idea what he's talking about. Now, he signs his bill after states like California, Connecticut have similar measures in place that attempt to prevent courthouse arrest of illegal aliens. Well, again, that's all legal too. ICE agents don't have to follow that. We saw Bill O'Reilly in the state of California come out and say, hey, we're not following this law. Now, he's a U.S. attorney for the state of California. He's a Republican. He's saying, hey, I'm telling ICE agents they don't have to follow this. This is not anything that binds you to any legal contract. Because, again, the supremacy clause, we supersede that. So, they could do this. Again, I think it's more for a PR stunt that they come out and do these things. They think, look at me, I'm, for the little guy, I'm for the immigrant, I'm for this, I'm for that. The fake altruism is overplayed here. People want to see their communities safer. They don't want to be giving up jobs, housing. Their schools overrun with illegal aliens. That's just the truth of the matter. And it's no different in the state of Illinois. Just wanted to share that with everybody. And finally, last article of the day. This one's a little bit of I don't want to say it's a surprise, but it's something that is a little bit positive. And I know sometimes our articles are fairly negative. We read these, we shake our heads. We say, how could this be happening? But this one's actually something that's positive. And I like this one, so we're going to go with this. So this is in the Wall Street Journal. And it says here that conservative young women are flipping the script. It says kids first, then career. Now, for those of you listening to this is something that's obviously positive. We suffer from a low birth rate. I think it's 1.6 per, 1,000, if I'm not mistaken. It should be 2.1. Anything below 2 obviously destroys the existing demographics of the country, which is why you see Joe Biden and the other Democrat schmucks ushering in illegal aliens, right? That's why they've been doing this for so long. So for generations, though, women have, the logic of focus on a career in your 20s, maybe think about starting a family afterwards. And again, this mindset was set in place largely by the counterculture revolution in the 1960s, right? The free love, the hookup culture, all these things stem from this. And of course, the women's rights, right? Women's lib. And the idea with all this is that women are just like men, right? They're just as smart. They should be focusing on a career. Having a family, it's, maybe you do it, maybe you don't do it. And if you have kids, you should be going to work anyways. How they've convinced women in this era to, leave motherhood and focus on a career, I'm sure I don't know. But nonetheless, it did happen. Again, that was ushered in through the universities, through the protests that took place, thanks to LBJ's Vietnam War. We saw all this. I think the civil rights movement was effective at this point. But one of the main areas, again, the push for abortion, and again, the push to get mothers out of the house. That was the big step with all this. And as a result of this, you see more women going to work in the 1960s. Again, it was a big shift because by and large at that time, most women stayed at home. They were homemakers. They took care of the house. And the husband went to work. Well, in the 1960s, late 1960s, we saw several things start to happen. We saw the immigration start to uptick again after it had been kind of flatlining for about 40 or so years. And we started bringing in people from all over the world. And the Hart-Celler Act, that kind of changed the national origins formula in the United States. And it was kind of this new Immigration Reform Act, right? Which good old Teddy Kennedy was right behind. Oh, God knows he's in hell. Anyways, so we see a lot of things. We see women starting to go to work. We see more people being brought in the country, both legally and illegally. And of course, you have the welfare state. So all these things start taking place around the same time. We start to see inflation of the 1970s start to uptick. We see people getting married a little bit later. We see people starting to have less kids. And again, you should be having 3 kids per family. Again, to keep the existing demographic with you. But right now, we're seeing this disgusting trend that's been going on for 60 years starting to shift. We're starting to see more women now prioritizing a family and careers much later. Again, this is a big change in societal norms. And it's a societal change for women as well. So I'm really happy to see this because, again, we need to keep the existing demographic. And as most of you know, the native populations, particularly the white population, have been decreasing ever since then. And again, it's all by design. Don't think it's not. The Rockefellers put money into that. The women's lib marches and all that. Anything you see, by the way, supported, but the events are all manufactured. Again, we see this time and time again. So again, I'm glad to see women are waking up, that they're moving away from this. And as a result, hopefully we'll get more people, particularly more American citizens. That'd be a nice thing, folks. Hopefully we just get some of those mass deportations as well. Folks, thanks you again for being here. I appreciate you so much. Today was my 100th show, and I couldn't have done it without each and every one of you, so thank you so much for tuning into this show. Hope you learned something. All these articles are going to be posted with the podcast. Don't forget to keep your house in order, folks. Everything starts in the house. So make sure you store up food, water, ammo, money, gold, tools, supplements, fuel, anything to be self-sufficient. And as always, I'll see you here tomorrow on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy, God bless.